I hope it starts raining out of nowhere. We can grab the Yeti girl and both those chairs, run up the boardwalk.
Welcome everybody. This is our songwriting workshop. I gave you a little introduction to song assembly, and that's why we're here. This is actually, an hour workshop. There's not enough time. Usually I do 4-hour, 6-hour, 8-hour workshops on this topic especially. But this is just sort of a truncated, a shortened version of a course that we're offering on song assembly, the online thing that you're going to learn so much about when you go on there and check us out. But this is a much shorter version of a course called Crafting a Country Song, How to Tell a Story with Words and Music, which is what we do in Nashville better than anybody in the world. And it's how to tell a story, you know. And there's a real. I remember in 1992 when I was planning on moving up here, I was doing the singer-songwriter thing, you know, and I started listening to country radio because my guitar students wanted to learn country songs. And I said, okay. And I started listening to country radio, and I was hearing, wow, those amazing songs coming out of here in the late 80s, early 90s, all the way through. And I said, how do they do that, man? And I started living under headphones and taking what I knew and trying to write a story. You know, it didn't have to do with me, even though I could feel it and I could empathize with it, but it wasn't my story and it didn't need to be. It's like, what's the title? And I understood that it became a real craft. You know, we all start out writing songs after we've broken up with our boyfriend or our girlfriend or fallen back in love or whatever, and we're writing songs, you know. But I realized after a couple years, honestly, doing some investigating into what they did down here from Florida, up here from Florida where I was living, was that it was a real craft. These guys went into rooms every day and wrote. They didn't stare out the window and wait for something to hit them, you know. The title was the thing that inspired them. And so I was lucky enough to figure that out and got a writing gig at a publishing company, EMI, one of the largest in the world, for a long time when I moved to town. I was signed really fast because I got a bunch of great songs in a bag, and it was also 1992 when they were signing a lot of people because the money was crazy, and there were a lot of opportunities then that aren't now. But so I started really studying the craft of songwriting and country songwriting, specifically the craft of telling a story. How do they do that down here? And it's a real craft. And I've been able to sort of codify those moves and present it in a course that I think can be and has proven to be very helpful in creating a narrative in your songs. Again, an hour. So you know, I'm going to take the choicest moments if I can. But so generally, and this is kind of the working method of us down here, the staff songwriters in Nashville who get together every day and go, what do you want? Hey, nice to see you. Want a cup of coffee? How's your mom? How's your daughter? Great. How you feeling? Good. You look good. You work out? You know, hey, look good. And then, you want some coffee? I already asked you that. And we sit down, and after we get through the niceties, we go, well, what do you want to write? Well, I don't know. What you got? And we open our hook books where we've been writing titles and ideas from everything we've read, heard on the radio, saw in a movie, some friend said something and our eyes glazed over, you know. I was talking with somebody the other day and said, how much you pay for that truck? What, about $30,000? Oh, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I'm like, I'll be right back. And I go in the bathroom, got my recorder out, somewhere in that neighborhood. Guy goes back to his hometown to rediscover that youth that he once was, but things are changed, you know. Yeah. Jimmy Webb said couple things. He said a lot of things great. He said our office is between our ears. And he also said we're songwriters first and human beings second. So, yeah, anything said can be a song title. Anything that you read, anything that you hear, you just kind of, if you don't already, and I'm sure you do, you just have to kind of approach the world that way. There's a song in that, you know. It's just like, write those things down in a hook book. That's the pragmatic part. Write it down. And so when you get with a co-writer, hopefully, or you have enough initiative to do it on your own, to sit there with your idea book and go, I forgot about this title. And I would recommend that when you come up with something that sounds like a title or it might be a good idea, get the elevator pitch underneath it. Write what you think it might be about. Somewhere in that neighborhood. Guy goes back to his hometown to discover that kid that he once was, and he knows that little boy is running around somewhere in that neighborhood. Boom, song idea. And 5 years from now, 2 years from now, whatever it is, you go back to the hook book and you're with your co-writer or you're by yourself, you go, what do I want to write today? Because it's always about intention. Okay, what do I want to write? As opposed to, Bobby left me, you know. So it's like, okay, Oh, here's one. That's right, somewhere in that neighborhood. I wonder what that was about. Oh, I wrote a elevator pitch. Guy goes back to, guy goes back to. Create a story. So get some ideas in a hook book, and then when you sit down, then you'll have something to write. And so basically what I'm talking about is writing from a title. There's a lot of ways to write, but this specific move, this specific craft, writing from a title, has a lot of advantages. It gives you limitations. And one of the greatest things I ever read and believe in and try to teach is in any sort of really living, honestly, any sort of life development or certainly craft and songwriting craft for sure is, and remember this, and you write this down, limitations are liberating. It's an old saying. When we're given too many choices, we don't do anything. Limitations are liberating. So what limitations? Song form, 3.5 minutes. You got 3.5 minutes to tell somebody's life. That's a limitation. If you had all the time in the world, you wouldn't get it done because it'd be, and I taught at Belmont, and I love those kids, but they'd come in with 6 minutes songs about themselves. 6 minutes. I mean, really, what the limitation is 3.5 minutes. 3 minutes if you can get it to 3. 2 minutes and 40 seconds if you're Stephanie Smith. You can do that. So limitations, in everything. And so limiting yourself to a song title is a great way to say no to lots of other things. What do you want to write today? I don't know. How about you? What do you want to go for dinner tonight? I don't know. Okay. How about, I don't know if I don't know. You end up going back home and, heating up a pizza as opposed to, I don't know, Chinese sounds good. Now you know where you're going and you can enjoy the ride. And so a title. And so I'm going to start with a title. I'm going to break down, deconstruct a process in an hour of a title that this guy came in with, a friend of mine, a co-writer, and he was talking about him. He didn't even know, in this case, he didn't even know that it was a title. He was just going, man, I saw this movie last night. I was telling you this. I was watching this movie last night. Man, this guy was in a bar and he was smoking, and it was like old-timey kind of bar, and these women were dancing by themselves, and it was like, it was just like, it was like, man, that's lonely stuff. I kept thinking to myself, man, that's lonely stuff. And I went, song title, Lonely Stuff. That's great. He goes, really? Lonely Stuff. I love that. I love that. Now, after doing this for 25 years in this town, and I guarantee you all the other professional songwriters that I know are going to go through the same process. And this is the biggest lesson you'll ever learn, at least as far as limitations are liberating. Writing the title, staying on task, saying no to everything else that doesn't matter in this moment is lonely stuff. That's worth writing, isn't it? Okay, the first question I asked myself, and my co-writer was asking, this is great, get ready. Not what this is about, but what rhymes with stuff? Well, it wasn't a question. I mean, yeah, you're right. Fluff, right? I get it. I knew that was going to happen. Gruff? No. It's. Again, limitations are liberating. It's like what is this about? It could be about a guy in Vietnam misses his wife, a guy on a desert island. This is lonely stuff. I mean, it could be. It's like shopping for toothpaste. Just want to go home. That's usually what you do when your mind shuts down in facing some big obstacle, like what is this about? You usually go check the laundry. You're like, oh, this is going to be, I'll tell you what, let me see if the dog, is that the dogs? Right? She's laughing. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So limit yourself. Self-imposed limitations, like a baseball field, like a chessboard. It's not fun unless there are rules and limits, like a picture frame. So one of the first limitations is song title. The second limitation is not what is this about, it's what rhymes with stuff, because lonely stuff is going to rhyme, isn't it? That title's going to rhyme because it just snaps its tail at the end of that, lonely stuff. In a song that's going to rhyme, and probably perfect rhyme if you can get away with it. So my first thought was not what is this about, but what rhymes with stuff. So in the margin of my legal pad still, I wrote, again, you have to you're thinking of rhyming words through the prism of that idea. Okay, fluff, maybe not with lonely stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Those are good. And those are words that have to do with the title, lonely stuff, enough, tough, rough, and some near rhymes, cup, I came up with. So, so I wrote those in the margin. Now it's just a matter of writing a couplet, writing a line that pays off the title. So you never start at the beginning of a song. You do when you're in love. Bobby at the school today. But you start right about there. If this is the piece of paper, that first couplet, that title went right about there, and I thought, that's lonely stuff. Okay, what line do I have that can pay that off, that can knock that out of the park, that gives the whole song its very reason for being? And the first one I thought of, enough, and I don't want to spoil the end of the story, and I'm not going to, but that when I thought of enough, a line came to me, and I went, oh man, let's begin with the end in mind. Let's put that here. And that line that you'll hear ended up at the very bottom of the page. So how we started the song was, I put that couplet, that line with that lonely stuff hook title at the very end of the page. And that was just our job to go from here to some of those other lonely stuff rhymes until we got to the very bottom. So start with the end in mind if you can. Begin with the end in mind. That's a great way to tell a story. Again, this is about narrative. This is about developing a story, not about writing an AABA form song or some girl up there. That's a different. That's in the moment. We're going to go down to the lake. That's now. But developing a story over time. Usually just, the first part, the second part, and the third part. 3 parts to a story, a narrative. And how you connect those, how you develop that narrative is by those couplets. Ooh, I thought of that first one. Oh, I know what that's going to be, and I put it here. And then we use the word rough. She looks like, she's had it rough, and that's lonely stuff. We put that here. And then the first one, I thought, whatever. The second one, maybe we put here. And so when I looked at that legal pad, we had this. We had the title with the payoff line in 3 different places. So now it was just our job to make it descriptive enough to keep the folks interested to connect the here to there to there. You see, it really becomes a craft. You see it, you turn it like if you were building a table or something. You don't just start here and go. You don't just go here and go down. You do it here and you move it this way and you do this and you move it this way and you do this. Same way with the song, okay? Put it here, put it there, put it there. It's all based on the hook, the title, and a rhyming word. Did you get that? Saves a lot of time, immediately focuses you, and it's a great way to do it.
To ask a question.
Yeah.
Are you thinking of the melody at that stage?
It's a good question, and that's exactly what I was getting to. At this point in the process, I've got rhyming words in the margin. I've got, in this case, it was a happy accident because I would have not, usually, a lot of times I don't end up with a line. I go, oh, this is where we need to go to. This is the last line. This is great. Sometimes. But I put that there, and then we put some of those other rhyming couplets in there. Rough, lonely. She's had it rough, and that's lonely stuff. Pour me another cup of that lonely stuff. That's a good one. And you'll hear it. And so once those were in, then I'll pick up the instrument and go, where does that live? Where do those hooks, where does that moment live? Not the beginning of the song, but where does the truth of that hook live? And it's usually in how it's delivered. When he said, man, that's lonely stuff. There's the truth. I mean, you could go, that's lonely stuff. Is it? Is that really lonely stuff? But he said, man, that's lonely stuff. And to me, it was like, right there, even his head, man, that's lonely stuff. That's the melody. And that's lonely stuff. That's lonely stuff. It's that sentiment. That's the truth of that title right there. Man, that's lonely stuff. That's lonely stuff. It's almost sung just like almost like it's said. And that's lonely stuff. So for the next 4 hours, you become an actor. And you are the guy in the bar. That's why it's so hard to stay married and be a songwriter. Because she don't know if you're going to be Carrie Underwood when you come home or somebody else. So, yeah, once you, if you're being honest with the moment, you are that person in the song until it's done. Every choice is made out of the truth of that character. It's a wonderful word called verisimilitude, like the truth. It doesn't have to have happened to seem like the truth, There's a saying in town there's a saying in Nashville that says, "Don't let the truth get in the way of a good song." And usually the mark of an amateur when you're writing with somebody, and they play you an idea. I'm going to write a song about my grandmother called "I Miss You, Grandma," and I'm like, okay. And they start into it, and they're playing a song, "I miss you, Grandma," and I go, I don't know, I don't really feel that. Yeah, but it happened. She died, okay? And I'm like, I don't care. It's not a great song. So. Don't let, it doesn't, yeah, I mean, okay, I feel for you, but it's not good. So it's not about if it's true, does it sound true? Can you make it seem true? Can I be that guy in the bar, which I've been. I have some things to draw on. But can I be that guy in the bar that makes you realize and feel the same truth that he's saying, that he's feeling, you know? Can I draw empathy out of you? Yeah, that's really it, and catharsis, you know? So, and the truth of that melody is that, man, that's lonely stuff. So for me, I'd pick it up. It's probably down in here. It's not. Is it here? Maybe. Is it here? No. It's probably. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Something's going to. Uh-oh. Country song. Watch out. Country song ahead, right? There it is. And so I'm kind of finding this world. And that's lonely stuff. So the first couplet was, I'm not going to give it away, but let's say it was, and she's had it rough. And that's lonely stuff. That's lonely. Man, that was lonely stuff. Same thing. It's got all about the truth. That's lonely stuff. So it started there melodically. That's lonely stuff. Again, now I'm starting backwards. Ba-da-dee-da. Now, my job is to connect those couplets that I've placed in, the line that rhymes and pays off the title. That was started in the margin. 3 different places. Ooh, that's going to knock them out. I'm going to put that there first. Now, find a place for the melody. What's the melody and the truth of that moment? What is that? Put that in and then work backwards and start connecting stuff, making a story. And this is great too. Title placement will give you form. Usually start out with, well, we need a verse, then what? Second verse or a chorus? I don't know. What do you think? Well, the song will tell you. By placing the titles in there, you're creating form. So title placement will give you form. Probably need a chorus there or a bridge. Maybe repeat the bridge. We'll see. But title placement will give you form. It's an organic way of doing it. You know, the content creates form. You don't just set out. You do, and when you're a beginner, you start out and you go, well, I need a verse, because that's what songs do. And then you need a second verse, because that's what songs do. And then what do you need? Chorus, right? Do we have any songwriters in here today, by the way? Okay, good. I'm just assuming. Okay, good. Chorus, and then what? I don't know. Do we need a bridge? I don't know. What a bridge? And then everybody asks, but when do you write a bridge? It's like when the song goes, I need a bridge. Title placement, and that's something that you learn after doing it for a long time. It's not something that you immediately know, I don't think. I think you have to certainly write within convention to be able to be unconventional. You know, you have to know what the rules are before you can break them. And so I'm not worried about, do we need a chorus? Is it a bridge? I don't know. The song will, it will tell us exactly what it needs. If you're true to the moment, what's happening in this guy's world. So you have to be an actor, you have to be true, you have to be completely unselfish and humble, which is very hard for me to do sometimes. And and we knew it was going to be a country song. So what was the opening line? We needed something really country. And if you can establish a place or a time where they are, where are they? What time is it? In what place? Or action. If you can establish place or action at the very beginning, then you don't need backstory. It immediately starts your song off. Okay? And this was glass of whiskey and a barroom stool. If anybody's thinking, I don't know, is this a country song? Well, let's just wait till the chorus. It might be a pop song. Let's wait. So immediately establish where he is, and then hook those couplets together and knock it out of the park if you can at the end. Make it a 1, 2, 3 narrative. if you can answer the questions, who is he? Why is he in there? Why are you telling me this? Why are you singing me this song? Then you've done your job. So let me play it for you and you'll get it. And after you've been playing guitar for 50 years, you can do cool stuff like this. Glass of whiskey and a barroom stool. Somebody's singing about being somebody's fool, and they're giving up. And that's lonely stuff. And there's a woman dancing by herself. She may be smiling, but you can tell she's had it rough. And what? And that's lonely stuff. Bartender, the glass is empty. Let's have another round. Kill that jukebox, turn off the TV. I need to hear the sound of a lonesome whistle from an outbound train. A warm feeling gets in my brain, and I can't get enough. So pour me another cup of that lonely stuff. Strings. Doo. Bartender, the glass is empty. Let's have another round. I need one more before I'm ready to face the truth I found when I got her message loud and clear. When I drove home and didn't find her there, guess she'd had enough. That lonely stuff. That lonely stuff. Yeah. Why is he there? Because she ain't there. Why? She's tired of his shit. She's had enough of that lonely stuff. But he kind of likes it. He's in there. He's kind of, you know. I understand that. You know, it's black. It's sort of bittersweet. It's sort of black and white. It's not. Who's to blame? I don't know. It's just what it is. Were you able to maybe watch that song as I played it? Ended up here. Oh, that's why he's in there. Guess she'd had enough of that lonely stuff. And what's interesting, what I love about it is, and we got a lot of mileage out of using lonely stuff as an ambiguity. Yeah, I'm glad you cried. That's I always want to cry when I play the song.
I have Kleenexes.
Glad you cried. That's why we've been put on. Songwriters put on the earth to make people cry. I just know it. It's true. Yeah, but it's funny. You're crying because it's beautiful. Isn't that a funny response? Isn't that an interesting?
It brought up, even though, like you said, the ambiguity, it brought up specifics for me.
Yeah,
The song allows you to cry.
Yeah, that's sweet. That's exactly right. Yeah, details are. Yeah, all you got to do is describe the scene, and the feeling will come from the details. Don't say a lonely bar, a bar that's a teardrop lined bar. which a lot of people do. They like overwork it. Just say, glass of whiskey and a barroom stool. Shoom, you're there. Just state the facts. Just tell us what's there. And there's a wonderful saying. What is it? Description is revelation. Wordsworth said that. Great poet. Wordsworth. Description. Just describe what you see. And the feeling and the motion and the details, and your imagination will kick in, because you see the same thing I do, you know, and your history will kick in. Now it's your song and not mine, and that's the point. That's your song. It's not my song, it's your song. And now you can't wait to pull over. You pull over and you're crying and you want to go buy it, which would have saved our industry. Where's Bonnie when you need her? But this wonderful thing about the ambiguity, we got a lot of mileage out of Lonely Stuff, is several things in the song, isn't it? It's the lady's dancing by herself. Man, that's lonely stuff. And then they're playing a sad song on the jukebox. Somebody's singing about being somebody's fool, and they're giving up. Man, that's lonely stuff. And then you get, so pour me another cup of that lonely stuff. Wow, now it becomes whiskey. Lonely is alcohol. Lonely stuff is alcohol. Wow, so now that's in your head. And then at the end, guess she'd had enough of that lonely stuff. What lonely stuff? Her lonely stuff and my lonely stuff. The whole song, I'm sick of that, you know. So she'd had, but it's about her now, not about the whiskey or the train in the song. So you see how it went. We kept him on a bar stool the whole song. 3.5 minutes, and you know his entire life, where he is, where he's probably going to go. But that wasn't a case of, hey, I got this idea called Lonely Stuff. A guy sits in a bar and he's and we're going to describe lonely stuff, and at the end his wife will leave him. Okay, let's start at the beginning. No, it's what rhymes with stuff. Cup, enough. Ooh, she's had enough of that lonely stuff. Oh, pour me another cup. Now you have to have an imagination to come up with this, which I assume songwriters do, or you wouldn't be in here. I mean, that's the first thing, you know. How do you come up with those? I don't know. You know, it rhymes with stuff. I know that's a place to start anyway. You know, it kicks it off. But I'll play another one and then I'll talk a little bit. But since you guys are a great audience, I'll play another one we wrote recently that has nothing to do with what rhymes with the title. Again, that's one way to write. That's just one way to write, Lonely Stuff. When I hear a title that has that perfect rhyme possibility, the first place I go to is, ooh, what rhymes with that? Ooh, couplets. That's how I do it with that kind of stuff. Some songs don't have that title that says rhyme me, you know. Some don't. So that's a different way of doing it. But it's still about telling a story. It's still about 1, 2, 3. Why is he there? What's the end of the story? And are you wiser for it? So these two Canadians, any Canadians here? There were some in another class. So these two Canadians, I was writing with them, we're talking about the lake effect. Do you know what the lake effect is? She got that, she goes, mm-hmm. See, there's the truth of that moment.
Michigan, so I know what the lake effect is. And then I moved down to Florida when I was...
Yeah, so the lake effect is, she goes, oh yeah. So if you're going to write a title called The Lake Effect, there's the truth. Lake effect. It's when a whole lot of snow from Canada basically comes down and deposits on Detroit and other places, Lansing. And they go, why? Better than frogs, I guess. So they were talking about, oh, the lake effect snow this year. Oh, the lake effect. Oh, the lake effect. You know, and they're such wonderful people, the Canadians. Oh, the lake effect. Oh dear. Oh, no. Oh, boy. And I'm just sitting over there. I'm going, you know, for a guy from Kentucky, the lake effect is like you're, you know, been out on the lake about 2 beers in. You got a stringer full of bluegill. And you're not thinking about what you should be doing or what you should have done. You know, you're just here now. And so we wrote The Lake Effect. Details. Listen to the details. It's also a list song, which I love. Goes, and I think that might be the sun bouncing off the water. says, light wind, skies clear, hot sun, cold beer, all week, big wreck, shift work, small check, but now I'm floating around on the water, all alone in the world, watching that old yellow bobber go up and down, to and fro, catch a fish, let her go. 2 beers down and 1 on deck, waiting on the lake effect. Beachside, big crowd, radio too loud, redneck, houseboat, barbecue, pot smoke, while I'm floating around on the water, all alone in the world, watching that old yellow bobber go up and down, to and fro, catch a fish, let her go. 3 beers down and 1 on deck, waiting on the lake effect. This time last week she pulled out her suitcase. Aw. Said, I've had enough, boy, I ain't coming back. Floating around on the water, all alone in the world, watching that old yellow bobber go up and down, to and fro. Should I keep this one or let her go? 2 hearts down and none on deck, waiting on the lake effect. Waiting on the lake effect. Waiting on the lake effect. Ah, there it is. Thank you. Another thing I like to run the title through, let's take Lonely Stuff still, is conjunctions. Because it can change the direction of your song profoundly. Although in Lonely Stuff it doesn't make any sense. And she's lonely stuff. Well, that might actually work. She's lonely stuff. He's lonely. No. I don't have an example now. What was my example? Using he, she, it, he, she, or it. Always run your title through that. Exchanging a he for a she for a they. It can completely change your title and your direction. Make sure that you always do that. I will think of a great example in just a second. Sticking to Lonely Stuff. Okay, we talked about setting the hook. Setting the hook, right? What rhymes with stuff? Paying off the hook. Someone called it getting past the bodyguard, which is a very descriptive way of getting the hook to the title, getting past the bodyguard. The bodyguard is guarding the title. Can you get past the bodyguard? Isn't that great? It's awesome. Anytime you can make these principles visual, they really help. They really, really, really help. And then Oscar Hammerstein, the great writer, wrote Oklahoma, and some other things. He called it tacking down the lyric. And so when you're putting tacks in the lyric. You see? I love that. You're tacking down the lyric. You never write from here to there. Sometimes you can do, but hardly ever. And so you're tacking down those couplets, right, with the hook. You're tacking them. If you can get that visualize that in your mind, you can really start to see the craft. And I think when I played Lonely Stuff, maybe you saw where those tacks were placed. You see? It really becomes a craft like that. Any questions about that stuff so far? Where we are? Is it making sense? Does it take all the love out of it? It's like, oh man, I just thought you wrote from love. All this crafty stuff, tacking down the lyrics and couplets and all this stuff. But it's all about making it seem true. If you're using simplistic details, if you're trying too hard, if you're trying to rhyme, something perfectly rhymed that doesn't, it sounds like you just went to the rhyming dictionary. We all know those moments. It doesn't seem true anymore. It's about making something true, and one of the best ways to make it true is to give it a specific detail. So rather than just a detail, make it a specific detail. Don't say the tree, say the sycamore, because particular details are universal ones. When I say live oak tree, you can see one. If I say tree, which tree? If I say lake, what lake? Give me a lake in Michigan.
Erie.
Lake Erie. You may have, anybody who's ever not been to Lake Erie, I have my version of what Lake Erie might look like, but a lake, it's like Brad Paisley songs. He's got all the lake in there. Going down to the lake. What lake? I don't see a lake. Give me Uncle Johnson's Lake or Muddy Bottom Lake or some kind of lake. So specific details. Don't say the TV. Say watching that boring little screen, or watching Captain Kangaroo, or watching. Don't say watching TV. Give me a specific thing you're watching. Specific details are universal ones, and it's the universal that you want people to go, oh yeah. I may have never even been to Lake Erie, but I know what that must look like, at least in my imagination. And once you get into their imagination, it's your song. You give it to them, because now they're creating their own reality, which is what you want. It's not you that this is about. It's about them. Specific details help keep you away from being simplistic. And it also lends truth to the moment, because you think the singer was really there. If he says, going down to the lake, okay. If he goes, going down to Muddy Bottom Lake, I trust him, because it's called Muddy Bottom and he's been there his whole life, and that's where you go. Or, sitting underneath that sycamore tree. I believe him. Sitting underneath the tree. Okay. Sycamore. Oh, it must be because he said there's a sycamore, See, specific details keep it away from simplicity and also lend credibility to the singer. Specific details are universal. That's what you want, without it sounding too forced, And that's a matter of taste. Can't go too far with specific details. I think the poetry is in the simple words. I think that's what we do down here in Nashville better than anybody else. I think some of the best poetry ever written have been written by country songwriters that are simple words, I think the hard thing is to be poetic with simple language. Some of my favorite poets are that way. Ted Kooser. Do you know Ted Kooser, Michigan poet? Oh, Pulitzer Prize winner. He's our poet laureate now. You should check out some Ted Kooser. Frost was that way. In a lot of his stuff. Songwriters that way. There's a bunch of them. We could go on. We'd waste too much time talking about those guys. But it's easy to write flowery language. It's harder to say something and just kill you. Just say it. Like, oh gosh, there's some great. There's a Merle Haggard line that kills me every single time. He says, I love you, this time I really do. Oh, my God, that's a whole history right there, this guy. This time I really do. As opposed to, our love is, the shadow of a moonlight on a pale winter night against the granite of a... Let us go, you and I, with the... like a patient etherized upon a table. Elliot's good, but it's like, just say it in a way that, man, that just killed me. Wow, that just killed me. There's a lot of examples. I can't think of any right now, but something that...
It's not love, but it's okay.
It's not love, but it's okay. Yeah. Oh man, this killed me. I gave an exercise in class in Belmont when I was teaching over there. Somewhere in that neighborhood was the name of the. I just gave everybody a hook, and I was talking about paying off the hook, hood, good, wood, just like we're doing in here. Go through that, go do your couplets, create this narrative, no music, just write this thing, boom, 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 beginning, middle, and end. And everybody kind of wrote about the same song. This guy goes, kid, girl, or guy, goes back to him or her hometown, his or her hometown. Tired. His or her hometown, and they're looking for that kid that they used to be. You know, and the town has changed. You know, the pharmacy's no longer there, and the high school is a little different. They built there's some condominiums here, but I know that I can find that kid somewhere in that neighborhood. It's nice. It's very nice. Well, you know Emily Weisband. You know who that is? She's knocking it out of the park now. She's killing it. She was in my class, and she was exceptional anyway, right? But she came up with a line that slayed everybody. She pretty much wrote what everybody else wrote about. You know, but like I should, but I'll find that person somewhere in that neighborhood. And she's, in her song, she's driving down the road, you know, back home after many, many years, seeing things that have changed. But she's somewhere in that neighborhood. She'll find herself. And she goes, at the end of the song, in the end of the road, she says, and there's that oak tree. I remember, he spread a blanket on the ground, and Lord, it felt so good. It wasn't love, but it was somewhere in that neighborhood. Oh, that's good. We all went. Spread a blanket on the ground, and Lord, it felt so good. It wasn't love, but it was somewhere in that neighborhood. Isn't that awesome? And it's perfect youth, and that's so good. So I would. We were going to do some exercising, but I knew only an hour. We couldn't divide you up in groups; it'd be too nutty. But I would want you to go to your hook book and rhyme the last word of the title, if it's a rhymable word. If it's saying, rhyme me, stuff. Don't ask yourself, what is this about? Unless you have it in the elevator pitch, that'll give you a head, that can give you a heads up. That can start you. But leave that alone and go, what rhymes with the last word? And then create a couplet, a payoff line, and see if several of them, as many as you can, and then start arranging them on the page. And there's your story. Then it's just a matter of keeping it interesting between those moments. Boom. See? Isn't that great? You really kind of see how that craft. And again, that's one specific way of writing a song. I mean, it's writing a narrative song based on a title that will rhyme. And when you're faced with that situation, now you know what to do. That's a specific task that you can solve. Other ways of writing are other ways of writing, There's so many, but I find myself when I write story songs, which is what I love to do for the most part, this is a method that works over and over. And I can sit across from a professional songwriter who's been writing in this town and got Grammys on their wall, and I'll throw one out, I'll throw a title out to Stephen Dale Jones or whoever, Gary Burr, whatever, and I'm going, oh yeah, I got this idea called Somewhere in That Neighborhood. And what is he doing? He's going, good, would, should. I can watch his lips move. Should, would, stood, would, stood. He's not going, oh yeah, this can be about, no, it's would, stood. I can watch his lips. It's amazing. It's a way to get a lot of work done quick, too. You just go to a method that really works. And, you think you can use that? Huh? Think you can try that? Just hook that up? What time we got here? Almost time. We should probably quit in a few minutes. Any questions? Any other?
I would like to know, because I keep hearing that, and I hate anything that tries to limit us writers. And like we have the idea, the title, and the story, and then we think about the audience, and they're saying that the radio audience right now is female between 20 and 35, so you should keep that in your mind, who can sing that song, and how far you limit your writing. You have that great idea, but you don't think there's any art. We talked about that earlier.
It's a great idea.
Artist around right now who would cut it. So, how do you?
It's a great question.
Do you have a pile of songs that you think these are going to be my favorites, but not this week because I got to make sure I use my time right or something?
I don't think it's always one way, but it's a limit that can be very useful. And I've never shied away from, from that. A great idea needs to be written no matter what.
And I think if the urge is big enough that it wants to come out, I think we just do it, right?
Absolutely.
Would you agree to
And a
that?
great song doesn't, it doesn't go away.
Right.
And if you're
Keeps
right,
knocking.
and if you're writing
I
a,
want to be written.
and if you're writing a bunch, it's not like it's the only great idea that
Right.
it's you can't really treat these like your children. You have to kill your babies from time to time. Like Hemingway said. It's like you have to believe that the next idea is going to be just as good.
Right.
And sometimes it's smart to try to get a Carrie Underwood cut or whatever so that you can continue to do this.
Get to that pile.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean it has to suck. It can actually be really great too. So I'm a big fan of that, and it's a smart way to write. And the business always shows up in this town when you're a professional writer. You always have the business on your shoulder. There's a great songwriter, Richard Lee, back in the day, told me, I passed him in the hall at EMI. I said, "What you doing, Richard?" Said, "Oh, just trying to make a little music in the money biz." So you always have that person, you have that editor, you have that music business editor on your shoulder all the time. Sometimes you want him to go away, and sometimes you flick him off your shoulder. But he's always there going, who's cutting? That's, probably won't say that. Or that melody's pretty high. These guys can't really sing that range so much. Yeah, that's a beautiful ballad, but artists write most of the ballads, and radio really wants up tempo. And so you have to find a happy place with that, But I don't know that it has to be viewed as a negative. If you have one day to write
Right.
a month, it's a problem.
Yeah.
If you're writing a bunch, okay, sure, let's try that, And it might just land you a cut that allow you to do it, to write your beautiful things anytime you want to, I guess. It's a funny business.
I'd say that for me as a songwriter, the tools that you're giving us and the expertise you're sharing is almost like you're always going to have those tools, and you could write the finest song, craft it, use that craft, but just steer it towards a specific situation, whether it's something for radio or that's what's great about this. You're giving us these tools that we can use when we need them, but just steer it towards a certain thing.
Absolutely. And, being such a fine producer like yourself, Simon, you take this arrangement. No, but you take a glass of whiskey and a barroom stool, and you put modern production, maybe some make it
I was emotional as well.
more contemporary, if you can make it more contemporary. I don't know. It seems like that kind of song's been here forever. But, yeah.
To be honest with you, that's the thing that's only made me come to Nashville from Scotland. 1,000%. So thank you.
That's why people move here. That's why I moved here in 1992 when I started hearing those story songs. I was like, how do they do that, man? And you get it by swimming in this water down here and going out and hearing music and co-writing with people that, and watching them go, Woodstock. And I've always been a teacher. I've been a teacher since I was in high school. I taught guitar lessons. I went to college and I taught there. And ever since I'm just a natural teacher. And forever, I'm that guy that's engaged in the room writing and also watching us on how we do it. I'm like, how are we doing this? And then afterwards, I usually make notes. Like, man, you know what we did? We used the word, for instance, the other day, we used the same word. We used the same word in the first line as we did in the third line. And somebody noticed it, and it was like, and all of a sudden it was like, we used the same word. And it was a pretty, profound word. It wasn't like and. And immediately the thought was, we have to change that. And it's a great line, and I hated to. And I was like, man, wait a minute. And we turned a negative into a virtue. And rather than change those two words, we made it a rhetorical scheme. And the next half of the verse did the same thing. Had that word with that same word. And it's like, they meant to do it. And it became something that, again, it was a happy accident. So don't think, great. It's like, what can you make of that? And it became, yeah. And so I want to teach that, which I just did. I hope.
Well, do you have anything to say about melody? Not necessarily style, but the notes.
Oh, man.
Oh, we don't have time for that, huh?
I don't have a lot. Well,
30 seconds. Song assembly.
I think it's a gift. I don't know. I think it's a gift. I don't know that you can teach melody. I mean, you can certainly address certain parts of the melody and go, oh, that kind of sounds like, or that's a little this, or especially at cadence points at the end of the phrase. And that's lonely stuff, and that's lonely stuff, and that's lonely stuff. Bobby Boda. The end. But in the middle, it's God. I don't know.
So either you get lucky or you don't.
I think you either are obsessed with melodies when you're 6 years old and you listen to the best melodies in the world, and somehow your brain needs to make sense of why that phrase worked with that question and answer phrase and why that sequence is beautiful. I don't know. There are certain things I think you can teach about intentional writing, but I mean, my son has the gift, has a melodic gift, and I noticed because when he was young, 5, 6 years old, we would walk out of Kroger, walk out of a grocery store, and he would be whistling. He's a fine whistler, by the way. Got it from his dad. He would walk out of Kroger whistling and improvising on the melody that he heard in the music. So somehow his brain, I mean, music, nobody listens to that stuff. It's just supposed to make you buy cornflakes, you know. And he's hearing, look at, and he's going, and their sequences and their question and answer phrases, and somehow his brain needs to make sense of that oral architecture. I don't know. The greatest composers in the world, from Stravinsky to Bacharach, said, it's a gift. I think there's certain places you can address, and our next course that we're going to be producing on song assembly is actually that, intentional melody writing. This wonderful girl that I signed to our publishing company, Zarni Devet, wonderful South African girl, is an amazing melodic person. When we write, she'll go, I like that, but what if we started the verse on the second beat? Listen to this, how it backs off the phrase. I'm like, I would have never done that. So something that comes out sort of naturally, you can address and go, what if you did this? And she's a master at that. And that's one of the next class we're offering coming up pretty soon is that on intentional melody writing. But the initial impulse, why? I don't know. It just feels like it's a gift. I don't know. I'm sure people can talk me out of that or try to talk out of that. I don't know. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah, sorry.
What do you do with half-finished songs? Do you make yourself finish them to have that completion, or take it to a co-writer? I have so many fragments of songs that I love and I think are great, and every time I try to do something with them, no, it's not.
Did you start them at the beginning?
Not all of them. Some of them are verses, but not all of them are verse-like. Some, I think, some parts are not.
I think where you are now with it, maybe a co-writer would help. Yeah. Say, what do you think? I got this thing. I mean, because we kind of partially write songs, and then you save it for your co-writer. This is a killer chorus, but I'm going to wait and write the verse with Chris Stapleton because he might cut it. You know what I mean? It's put him in there a little bit. But where you are now, I would get a co-writer to finish it. But I think part of the problem probably is you maybe started at the beginning on a lot of them rather than, because if you would have looked at the hook, the title, and paid off, rhymed it, and set it in place, I know what this can be. It's kind of not so much. And you can miss those. But you kind of can, wouldn't you say you can kind of sense, is this worth writing or not? But you probably started here and went, I don't know what to do, especially second verse, the curse of the second verse. What do I do? Well, you wouldn't have never got there. You shouldn't have never been there. You should have went, oh, e. That's probably what happened.
Building framework. In that song, did you?
We have to go.
Did the bridge lend itself? Those lines about the train and lonely stuff.
Did it what?
Did those just lend themselves, like you said? How the bridge will just, if you're true to the song, it'll just tell you.
Yeah, I knew we needed a departure from the same verse. I needed a different section for sure. It's actually a bridge. It started off as a bridge, right? AA, because the title's at the end of each verse.
Right.
That's lonely stuff. That's lonely stuff. Bridge, right? But then what we call it down here, the country bridge, you actually repeat the bridge, and now it's a chorus. The country chorus, right? Title, bridge, short solo, repeat the bridge, which if a repeated bridge is called a chorus because bridges don't repeat, right? And so now it's a country bridge. It's it's sort of a country form that we've sort of developed.
Did the train line repeat?
No, I changed it.
Oh, okay.
Good ear. I changed it halfway through. That was another part of the lecture that's going to take forever. That's why the online course is great.
Right.
Halfway through the chorus, I changed the language, which is not always the best shot. Usually you want to keep the same chorus. If you can keep the same chorus and it means something different every time, that's mastery. And that can be done, but I needed to tell the story and further it. So the first bridge was, bartender, the glass is empty, let's have another round. Kill that jukebox, turn off the TV, I need to hear the sound of a lonesome whistle. Second time, bartender, the glass is empty, let's have another round. Change. I need one more before I'm ready to face the truth I found. And everybody's going, when I got her message loud and clear. It's all storytelling. People are leaning in. Yeah? And you're creating an empty space. Real quick, one of the most important things is learn how to create an empty space that the listener can get into. And we were doing it together. We were dancing over there, and everybody always, when I set you up to expect lonely stuff, right? She's had it rough. That's lonely stuff. And the next time when you heard the next rhyme, everybody's going, lonely stuff, right? And that's why at the very end, when I went, guess she'd had enough. You're filling in the empty space. Oh, wow. And that's lonely. So you create an empty space for the listener to step into. And usually it's done by perfect rhyme and about 2 measures. Just give them a little time to go, I bet I know what's happening. Expectation, surprise, and inevitability. You set up an expectation, you surprise them with a different rhyming word, but it seems inevitable. Of course he'd be in there drinking from a cup of lonely stuff. That's just storytelling techniques that you can use. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Did everybody get a chance to sign that pad if you want to get signed up for it? We'd love to have you on board and let you know what we're doing. Okay.
I hope it starts raining.